Sit back, relax, and join William and Lee on their journey through the strange and mysterious world.
All right, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 16 of Strange and Mysterious World. We have a really, really interesting guest coming on in a few minutes, that being Sean McNamara. Very, very similar thoughts to what we have with regards to telepathy, out-of-body experience. He's got his own website, mindpossible.com. You can go and find. He's got a lot of courses there that you guys can, and reasonably priced as well, that you can go and attend. I think that would be, it looks pretty cool. So we're going to be having him on in a few minutes, and hopefully you guys will enjoy the discussion that we have with him. And let's bring him on. Well,
yeah, man. Well, he's coming on in a few minutes, but I just want to say, I'm really looking forward to this, Lee, because he is a pioneer in psychic development and research, by himself. But he's made quite a name for himself on the internet and around doing telekinesis exercises and stuff so you can experience telekinesis, and also mind sight seen through a blindfolded out-of-body experiences. You name it, he's done it. He's written lots of books on all of them, and we're really excited to have him on the show. Great. Here he is. Cool. Sean McNamara.
Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. I'm so
How's it
sorry
going?
about how we started the day, but I'm glad we could make it.
No, it's totally my fault. I just saw, when I read that thing, I saw you wrote Sep dot, and I don't know how I skipped the I just totally messed it up. I just thought it was on the 18th of this month. So totally my fault. But thank you for making the time today. That's really amazing that you just come on today. That's great. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for the invitation to chat.
Well,
great, man. So anyway, Sean, sorry, go for it, Lee.
No. So Sean, I was having a look at your website, and I must say a lot of the stuff that you do is right down our alley. I mean, we've had a lot of podcasts on out-of-body experience. We've spoken to Dick Algar about remote viewing. So I see there's a lot of stuff that you're teaching the things there, which is fantastic. I'm very interested in the telepathy and the telekinetic stuff that you teach as well, so which I think is also fantastic. And a question from my side, with regards to remote viewing, telepathy, and all these kind of things, is it when somebody's trying to access those type of things? And I know we're going straight into this, so sorry, Sean, if it's we're getting straight into the topic.
Has the show started? Are we?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Just so I know how to respond. Yeah.
No, that's cool. So I've always had this vision, and when I was chatting to when we spoke to Dick about this remote viewing thing, I've always had this idea that there is something that I call the Akashic field, or there is something that exists that we are all access to it. We have it's like a plane of existence that we all have a past, future, and a present. And whether it's telepathy, remote viewing, whatever it is that sort of ESP that we have, it's an access to this field. I don't know if that's kind of similar to what your beliefs are in this whole thing, Sean.
Well, all my experiences have led me to realize I still don't know what's happening. And so I try and refrain from believing in anything substantially, because it could be disproven eventually. There's just not enough substance in the physical world to prove it scientifically, that it's in any certain way. But a concept that I use to support my way of thinking about it, to keep me sane, to keep me from pulling the rest of my hair out of my head, is similar to the block universe theory, that past, present, and future are already present in the universe. So we could imagine a three-dimensional space, but actually the 4 dimensions of time, and everything's already existent, but it's not fixed, it's probabilistic. And I think of it, I call it a jello block universe. So imagine a block of gelatin that moves a little bit, and sometimes it moves in large waves, sometimes in small waves. And that makes seeing some things with remote viewing or trying to predict events some types of events are more difficult than others. For example, with some friends, we periodically will use associative remote viewing to try and prevent or to try and predict an event. For example, we went through a phase back in 2019 when we were trying to predict a very small lottery in Colorado called the Pick 3, and we predicted it twice correctly that year. But lottery numbers are tricky because they're so probabilistic. They can change so easily that that kind of prediction is very, very difficult. Unlike trying to predict, let's say, a sporting event with two teams, and historically one team is already much better than the other team. So predicting that will it win again, there's a low probability that something would happen to reverse it and that the other team would win instead. So those types of events are, I'd say, easier to predict using remote viewing techniques. But so that has to do with, yeah, maybe there's something like an Akashic record out there, but that phrase makes it sound like everything is recorded and fixed and will not change. An entry in the record is that way forever. But what I've experienced with associative remote viewing is that no, some records are not fixed. Some records can be edited or changed and understood differently.
Yeah, so I didn't actually mean it to come off as a record. It's more like a field of existence or another dimension. Maybe that's the word I'm looking for. It's an alternate dimension where everything past, present, and future exists, has existed, will exist. We will, we've got people that are kind of figuring things out now, it's already been on the field, and that's all they're doing is they're having access to that field to now all of a sudden invent this or invent that, whatever it is. So it's nothing really new. But it's not so much of a record, but more of a place, I'm trying to figure out words that can explain it. But everything that has life, or everything that has vibration or frequency, exists, and it can change. Exactly, you're right. So, I mean, I might be thinking to myself, hey, I want to buy myself a TV for my lounge. And I happen to perchance have a bit of an astral projection out of my body, and I see this TV, and I'm thinking, oh wow, I don't recall. It's in my astral world, but it's not in my real world. So I think it might be a thought form that's formed in that world that is waiting for this to happen. And if it doesn't happen over a certain period of time, maybe you kind of forget about it, it disappears. So I think you're right. I think it's a constant changing field, but there's always things there that you can access, especially for the past and the future that's coming. I don't know if that kind of explains it a little bit better from my side.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, I think I understand what you're trying to say a little bit better about what is this place where the information comes from. Is it a state? Is it a location? Is it physical or energetic or something else? And it's even more complicated than that, because the example you used where you have an out-of-body experience and you see the thought form of that television that you find later on. Well, what if it's retrocausality, that the event in the future when you see the television is what caused you to have the out-of-body experience in the past? So the information was moving backward in time, and you had the out-of-body experience, and you're actually seeing the future then, but that came second, not first.
Yeah.
So even time, the way it functions, it goes out the window.
Yeah.
In that strange space that we could call the Akashic field, or has many other names. But what is that place? I think a big part of the conversation needs to be that when we're talking the way we are now, we're wide awake, we're using our physical bodies to communicate, we're using our physical brain for a lot of that, the prefrontal lobe, our personalities, and the brain is filtering out a lot of information that's out there about reality. So because we're just mammals, primates almost, we're so limited in what we can experience, but it's not sealed completely. There is an opening in the mind where we can have these experiences of precognition, retrocognition, telepathy, clairvoyance. So there's space for that. Some people have a larger space than others. And I'm using these words figuratively. I'm not saying there's a literal space in the brain. I'm just saying there's the experience of being able to perceive. But as long as we can't limit the way we think about this to how we think and speak consciously on an everyday level. That whatever this space is beyond the physical brain.
Yeah.
And the brain, we have to, because we are alive in these bodies, we have to use our brains all the time. And it's through the brain where we receive this information, but it is not sourced in the brain. Yet the brain somehow can act like a radio antenna. I'll use that old analogy, like a radio antenna, but the signal is coming from somewhere else, and it is not the land of antennas. It's from some other realm. I mean, the word space doesn't work. All these words that we use, space, time, frequency, these are words generated in the physical brain. So they are all limited.
Yeah.
Because the true word that represents whatever that place is, we don't even know that word. It's we don't know what that word is because it's beyond the understanding of the brain.
Well, I think it's kind of equating to almost, I'm going to say Christopher Columbus, although we know it's already fake news with Christopher Columbus, but when he kind of, no one knew there was land across the sea that side. And eventually, apparently he found it, and all of a sudden they're now exploring this new world. So I think, with people like you that are doing like the remote viewing and the telepathy and getting into these new realms of existence, it helps us with exploring those realms and maybe getting to understand it a little bit better and understand ourselves. Because currently, as a human being, we actually do not know half the stuff that we are capable of doing or have done in the past. I mean, I've always believed that as a human being, capabilities that we had and probably been taken away from us many, many years ago. But we had these capabilities. We had these capabilities of telepathy. I think it's innate in all of us. But something happened and it's taken it all away from us. So I think it's great, Sean, of what you're doing currently, I must be honest.
Oh, thank you. Well, I just get a lot of joy from working with people, teaching people, just helping them experience what's already innate in them. So I don't give anybody anything. I just offer techniques and feedback and create training opportunities. But whatever people are able to show for their ability, that comes from them. Like it's theirs and it always has been. So I'm just helping people realize what's been there all along inside of them. And
Tell me
that's the joy for me.
your telepathy, because I've seen, your pricing on your course is actually pretty good. It's very reasonable. And how's the telepathy going? Have you had good feedback from people with regards to that? Yeah.
Yeah, that's my primary focus these days because the results are immediate, they're fun, and everybody has some level of success with it. So sometimes I'll teach in a classroom, but more often I'll teach over Zoom. So in a class, there'll be about 12 students, and they're typically scattered in different parts of the world, mostly the UK, sometimes Australia. I don't know if I've ever had anyone from South Africa yet in one of my Zoom classes, maybe, but in Canada. But so they're spread across continents. And in these training exercises, they begin by reading my mind. So I'll be looking at a line drawing. And the drawings I pull from a database. So there's no way for the students to have any idea what these drawings are that I'm looking at. And their job is to receive impressions from my mind because I'm trying to send the information. They're trying to receive it. And then they draw what comes to them on a sheet of paper. And then they show their paper on the camera, on the Zoom call. And we see, there's a range of resemblance to the target image. There's a way that I train them to prepare them for that. So first we have to train the mind. We have to develop the vocabulary of what does a straight line feel like in the subconscious mind? What does a curved line or a circle feel like? So we're developing the language so that when we get into actually sending and receiving images, they know what these shapes, what these boundaries feel like in the subconscious mind. And then they're able to send them through their hand and write them down on paper and try and create an image similar to the target image. And everyone generally has some level of success with it. Some have had high levels of success with it too. the biggest predictor to people's success is their level of openness to it, their curiosity, being in a positive state of mind, not being pseudo-skeptical. Because if someone doesn't believe in it, they will make sure that they fail, even if they say they're not. Somehow, on some level, they'll shut down. But I don't get those types of people in my training typically. And that people are just relaxed and there for a good time. And first timers especially do very well because they have a very low level of expectation.
Yeah.
And the same thing happens with the remote viewing. It's the first timer effect. You do it the first time and you do a fantastic job. And after that, everyone is so worried about doing as well as they did the first time that they're stressed and they're trying way too hard. And they forget the basic of instruction of just let go, let the information come to you. Instead, they reach out with their mind to try and grasp the information that's being sent psychically. But that only causes the brain to guess what the target is and produce imagery that has nothing to do with the psychic information. And then the rest of their journey is about learning to let go and be first timers again. How do we get that first timer experience back? And it's really about untraining ourselves to be so we can be fresh again, as if we had never done it before.
I think that's that idea, exactly right. I think it's called castle building. If I stand to be corrected. But so when you've got this image in your mind, and I do, William and I, we remote view quite often lately, I'll say, and we get these images, say like a line, almost like a triangular line, and I like for the last one that he sent me, and I get this triangular line, and I'm thinking, what the freaking hell is a triangular line? But then I'm trying to make sense of why I'm seeing this triangular line. And then I start having all these other ideas, and then eventually you've got your own imagination that's going in, and it's designing its own thing. Where if you had just stuck with the triangular line, stuck with whatever other basics that you had, showed him what I had, he looks and he says, "Yeah, that's exactly right." But then you've got to start learning to say, "All right, so I saw this and saw it. How did that work? I need to pull away from, because I'm obviously right on top somehow. I'm viewing it literally on top." So I need to learn to move out and actually start seeing. But I think that takes a lot of practice. But and obviously this is with remote viewing, and I'm assuming remote viewing and telepathy work very similar, because you're saying that you've got a picture or something that you've drawn, and I'm almost remote viewing. I'm on that field again. I'm seeing what you're seeing. So I'm almost going into your mind to see what you've actually drawn. So I think it's probably something similar. That's what telepathy is. That's my understanding. I don't know. Maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong on that.
No, I think you're right. I think at the root, they are all the same thing. The same thing is happening across all these psychic abilities that have to do with receiving information. And it's even questionable about, is it because I'm sending the information in telepathy that's why they're perceiving it? And traditionally, that's what telepathy is. It's between two human beings. One person is sending, the other is receiving. But sometimes in my class, I will have people, and this is a twist on that, I will have people read their own mind in the future. I will say, you are going to send yourself the target in 10 minutes. So right now, receive the information that's coming to you from the future from yourself. And they do that. They'll spend a few minutes relaxing, letting the information come. And then they set down their transcripts. And then 10 minutes later, I show them the target and tell them to send the information back to themselves in the past. So in a sense, it's not a two-person telepathy, it's single person, or it is two-person. It's them from the future and them from the past. But I think telepathy, any clairvoyance exercise will probably be more successful when another human being has seen the target. And this happens with remote viewing too. So there's telepathy there. It's not just straightforward clairvoyance, like a person seeing a picture in an envelope that was randomly put there without anybody seeing it. So with remote viewing, there's a stage at the end that actually starts the whole cycle off, the feedback phase, when you actually see the target. In that sense, when you see the target, What are you doing? You might be performing spontaneous telepathy,
Yeah.
just like I described, sending the information back to yourself. Or if maybe your remote viewing tasker, the person who organized the experiment, if they saw the target, you might be reading their mind without even knowing it. Or at any point in time in the future, no matter how far ahead in the future, if some other human being saw the target, your mind, because we're all interconnected, may have just tapped that person's mind to receive information about the target.
So very, very closely related, very closely linked.
Yes,
Remote.
I think the only difference is in the protocol. Remote viewing is really clairvoyance with a protocol, and the protocol is the use of a coordinate that you sit down voluntarily at a certain time to do the experiment. The experiment is finished at a certain time, and then there is the feedback process. So this is the protocol designed to help people access their ability and to perform at a high level with it. But in the end, what are they doing? They're receiving information at a very subtle level. And the same thing with telepathy, same thing with mediumship, channeling, clairvoyant, all these abilities. It's really perceiving this very, very subtle, ephemeral information in the darkness of the mind and reporting it accurately instead of letting your personality color it over or start guessing or coming up with other information that is not accurate. But at the core, I think it's all the same thing.
Yeah. Now, William actually had something of it. We discussed this some time back, and I don't know, he got into a bit of trouble for doing this, but he's got a daughter that he decided to do one of your tests, well, one of your things that you do, which is that blindfolding, trying to see through the blindfold. Hey, William?
Yeah, so Sean, I've been following your work for a long time, and I'm a great fan, and I've read your Mind Sight book and your Telekinesis, because you got two, you got meditation X, telekinesis, and you got the other one that is like
Defy your limits.
Defy Your Limits one. Yes, I read the Defy Your Limits one. Okay, so firstly, okay, so I mean, the Mind Sight one. So, I've been following like all of the for the people that are listening that don't know what Mind Sight is. You put a blindfold on, and you learn how to see through the blindfold. So you're using like some extrasensory perception or like to see through. Or yeah, I mean, like I would like for you to explain like what exactly is happening. But the thing is, like, so I read your book. I tried your technique. I was also following Wendy, what's her name, Wendy
Gallant.
Gallant on YouTube, and Rob, and then also I even bought Caroline Corey's course online. There was that line. I also did that one, and then Nicola Farmer. So I did her because she's like actually probably the main lady that you watch every documentary about that blind sight or whatever. She's in the documentary teaching the kids how to learn how to see through the blindfold. So I did her class online. It was like a 3-day class. I did it online. It was amazing. But then I went and I taught my daughter, right? And me and her mother are separated, but I taught her, and she could see through the blindfold. I mean, I've got videos of her doing it, but then her mother found out about it, and she got so upset that she went to the police and filled in this affidavit, like that it was child abuse and domestic violence. So like, so I had to have a social. It was a whole court case and everything, and then a social worker had to come and had to analyze me and to analyze her mother and analyze the daughter. But luckily, the it came out that there was no problem. Like the social worker didn't find a problem. So like it's all okay now. And but it was quite a hard time because she didn't even want me to see my daughter, like because she thought it was so bad that I was only allowed to see her like once a week, and with what do you call it, like someone that could watch us, and like I had to see in public places, like, and someone that she would. So it was quite a very serious situation. So like, I just putting a warning out there: if anybody's going to do this, and you're not together with your children's partner, make sure that you tell them exactly and see if they're on board. Otherwise, your life is going to be hell, especially if you're the male, because a woman nothing worse than a woman's, what's the wrath of a woman's scorn? What is that saying?
Yeah.
Wrath
But
of a woman,
the
she's
main
gonna
thing
take
about
me
that,
down.
William, the
She
main
will
thing
take
about
me
that,
down.
the main thing is it worked.
But anyway, so it's work. I got the video. It's amazing. I was like I was so amazed. But anyway, so I know, yeah, like I mean, she wanted me to go. Her mother wanted me to go to a psychiatrist, to a forensic psychiatrist, to see if I was sane. Anyway, it was a long story, and it was really quite a horrible time of my life. But luckily, that's all over, and I'm in the clean now. But so also it's funny because I've started to try and do it myself again, and so I've just been doing it for about 5 days now. In the morning, like after I meditate, I just put the blindfold on and I try for like 10-15 minutes. But what I'm seeing now is like there's like a bright light that starts in the middle of my vision like this, and then it just kind of like goes down in a wave, and then it starts again and it goes down in a wave, and then sometimes it's like a little bit purple, sometimes a little bit green, and then it just like goes in a wave. So I don't know if that's because I can't actually, I don't remember anybody saying that in any of the like that's a thing yet. But anyway, so how's your mindset going? Like after you've written that book and that, have you been able to see through the mask completely?
Oh, no, no, no. I got to the point where I could perceive some shapes and colors. And then something happened to me soon after I put the book out that traumatized me. That someone threatened me, and that kind of shut me down, and I just moved on.
Really?
So yeah,
Okay.
and I thought you were going to lead there with after things finished with your wife and the social worker, that maybe you had a hard time returning to it, because I would have assumed that what you went through was a very traumatizing experience. It's basically a modern witch burning. You
Yeah.
got burned. Um, and that's why a lot of people who do this work are not public about it. That's why people still keep private about it, because their job could be at stake, their social reputation is at stake. People could be very, very threatened, and religious zealots with weapons could come and think you're the devil and try and take your life because they see you as a threat to the human race, or that you're against a religion. Even though the witch burnings happened several hundred years ago, doesn't mean that they couldn't return today. In fact, they're still active today. There are certain people who strongly fear these abilities and believe that they are the work of evil forces, even though they're a natural phenomena like electricity and gravity and time. This exploration of consciousness, the capacity of consciousness, is a natural aspect of reality, and it's not good or evil. It's just like the rain and the clouds and the sunlight. It's just what is. Now, you could use it for good or evil, just the way you can use money for good or evil. There's still people who have old-fashioned ideas, who are not very deep thinkers, that they're mostly irrational. If they fear it, they want to destroy the source of it. So you got a little bit of that experience, that your ex-wife feared or misunderstood what you and your daughter were doing, and she had to take some action, that she believed she needed to take some action against it. So I thought that you were going to say after all that you were so traumatized that you could not practice this anymore,
Well,
because
yeah, I mean,
that kind of happened.
I don't do anything with my daughter anymore. I mean, which is a pity because I thought it was going to be this, she was going to be beautifully like developing these abilities in it and stuff like that. But anyway, so I've put that aside. So I'm not doing any, like I will never ever do anything with her again ever until maybe she's 18 or 21 or whatever. But I'm still myself practicing. But so what
Yeah.
happened to you?
Oh, it was something unrelated. Someone threatened me in the building that I used to live in, and it turned out that he had hurt a lot of other people. He was basically a psychopath. And I don't want to go into the details because then I'll get triggered again. But basically, he made me fear for my physical safety
Yes.
in a very strong way. And I was I was traumatized and very anxious for a long time because he lived in my building. So I always felt under threat.
Yes.
And so I had to take a break from practicing these abilities, because I would try and I would sit down to train, but then I would have memories of the trauma reoccurring.
Mm.
And because that's the thing with this training, it's about having a relaxed and open mind.
Mm.
But if the conscious mind is still processing painful memories, then those memories just get brighter and more vivid in that space. So I had to wait a long time for me to heal from that trauma before I started training myself in these abilities. And at that time, by then I had moved on to focusing more on telepathy. So I haven't gone back to the mind side personally. And I've actually also let go of the training in telekinesis because I have all these resources out there to train people. They don't need me. I don't want people to rely on me. So I create the courses and the books. But for myself, I reached a point where I realized I was continuing to train for all the wrong reasons. You know, once in a while, someone would message me on social media or send me an email saying, do something heavier, move something more. You know, what's the heaviest thing you've ever moved? I want to do more. And I started pushing myself, training too much, and to the point where my heart would start to hurt physically. And I've had heart surgery, so I was very sensitive to that something was happening with my heart because I was pushing too hard. And it wasn't coming from a very relaxed space, which the way I train telekinesis is you need to be very relaxed. But my ego was getting in the way and I was trying to push so I could do more, not recognizing that there's probably a natural limit to how much matter I could affect with my intention. There's a natural limit. Everyone has a different limit.
It's funny you say, Sean, because that famous Russian lady that could do telekinesis quite well, remember, she could move like coins and boxes across the table, and she actually had a heart problem. Didn't she die of a heart murmur? She
She did.
eventually died at a very young age because it like drained
Yes.
her completely, and like she had a heart attack eventually or something like that. That's
Yep,
quite,
I was thinking of her exactly, Nina Kulagina.
yeah.
Do you train
Yes.
telekinesis? Do you still train telekinesis?
No, not in person, mostly because I've done it so much. I'm a little bored with it. And my courses are, you know, people can just follow the course and be successful or use my book, and the books have links to videos. So I don't know. Every time I would teach a course meant I would have to carry about a dozen. Let's see, I know we're not doing this on camera, but I still have one of the containers. I'd have to pack my car with 12 of these large glass vases
Okay.
and bring all the other supplies. It's just kind of a pain in the butt after a while. So
But
I figure I'll just give the instructions and people can see me doing it on video and then follow along.
Okay.
And they're generally successful. When I would teach, it would just be in 2 hours. And by the end of 2 hours, people could do everything that took me years to learn.
Okay.
And I think it's just because I figured out which paths do lead somewhere and which don't. So I had done a lot of trial and error
Well, trust
and
me, I
just dialed it
tried
in.
telekinesis when I was young, and I don't know if you recall when Star Wars first came out, which was back in 1977. And then you had the Empire Strikes Back, and Luke Skywalker was trying for his, he was really pushing for that lightsaber. I promise you, for the next month, I got home, and all I could try to do was just give me that lightsaber. But yeah, but that was always interested in me. I promise you, telekinesis was something I thought, wow. I mean, can you imagine we could actually do that? But yeah, I never got it right. I never got it right.
But Sean, because I read your book, I really loved it, like, well, both of them. But the telekinesis one, I mean, I ran out to the shop, I grabbed that like jar that you just held up. Now I got two of those. I put them there, got the tin foil and the pins and everything, and I set it up, and I even like put press stick. I don't know what you call it in America, like blue tack or whatever, like that you stick pictures on walls. I put it around the bottom so that there was not even any air going in there, and then these things just were spinning and spinning and spinning. And I was just like, what is going on? And I was thinking, when are they going to stop spinning so I can start practicing? And I like even left and I came back and these things were still turning. And I'm like, what is going on here?
It's
Like, why are
magnetic
these
field.
things- So then like eventually I went to bed and like I came up the next morning and like they'd stopped. And I was like, okay, fantastic. Now I can start. I don't know why they were spinning so much. It was like, but then like I would try and I didn't have any success until I started putting my hands on the glass. But then I started thinking like, well, the glass is heating up and it's obviously causing some kind of like vacuum or whatever. But you say that in the book, and then it would actually start turning like every time I put my hands on the glass. So yeah, I could never work out if it was a heat that was generated that made it. But it was very weird that those things were spinning like crazy before I even like started. and they wouldn't stop.
Right. Well, the way the target and the way I teach telekinesis, so for your listeners, it'd be either a piece of paper or a piece of aluminum foil or a tin foil balanced on a needle. In the end, what it's really doing is it's being a biofeedback system. It's reading how we feel. And it could be that they were spinning so wildly when you first set it up because of your state of mind. You may have been excited, having a high level of anticipation, curiosity. There could have been just an ordinary physical effect, maybe a vibration in the floor or something else kept them spinning. That's the difficulty with telekinesis. And that's honestly one reason I also don't teach it too much anymore, because it's really difficult to discern when it's moving because of natural physical effects or when it's moving because of your intention. It's hard to tell the difference. And when you do put your hands on the glass, you do heat up the glass, and there could be convection moving the object inside in the beginning. But this is a psychological tool to help build your confidence, because that's just stage one when you have your hands on the glass. When you feel confident with that, then you go to stage two, where your hands are just a few centimeters away from the glass, and you're still able to produce the effect. And at this point, you should be able to notice that you're using that special breathing technique that I teach in the books and in the online course, that the movement is no longer random the way it is with heat. If it's heat, it would just spin at the same speed, in the same direction. But if you're practicing with a special breathing technique, you can make the object stop by holding the breath at the top or the bottom of the breathing technique. By holding your breath or releasing, you can get the object to reverse direction. And depending on how you feel, if you start pushing too much or trying too hard, it will actually cause the object to stop. So when you are stressed out, it stops the object because you're no longer influencing. And then you start breathing with the technique again, relaxing, and the object will start to move again. So at that stage, it's not just the heat, that you are influencing it, and you can test it by changing the direction or the speed using that special breathing technique, because there is a connection between the breath and the mind, or the breath and consciousness, and the breath and your level of relaxation or tension. So that's the first hurdle, is someone needs to be able to get past level one and have confidence that, yes, maybe the heat is moving it, but maybe there's more, and they continue training to the point where they can control the target. And
Yeah,
then
because
they'll see, okay.
you were controlling it from across the room. And also what Corey, Caroline Corey, in her documentary is it Superhuman or Superpower? I can't remember, because there's two documentaries. One's called Superhuman and Superpower, the documentary series. And her one, I think it's Superhuman. No, it's Superhuman, I think.
Superhuman.
You in that, actually. You actually in that, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah, you're in one of the episodes. Yeah, so then she goes and she gets a scientist to like get a vacuum sealed like a metal container, like that's like hollow inside, and they vacuum seal it, and they put a camera in there, and they put the tin foil and the thing there, and they record the movement of this thing for an hour before, like an hour before she starts and an hour after she's finished. Do you remember this in the documentary?
Actually, that's in the other one. So I wasn't in that one. I was in
Oh,
the
okay. So
first
that was
one. Yeah.
another one. So because like they want to see like an hour before of that thing will move at all, and they record it for an hour and nothing happens. Nothing happens, and as soon as she starts concentrating on it, it starts moving, and then she stops concentrating. She leaves it, and for an hour after that, nothing happens to it, and it's in this like sealed. There's no air that can go in it. It's like there's nothing touching it. So that's very interesting. But then they did the experiment when she was at home, and then they recorded the movements and vibration, and like there was a lot of sensors on that thing to record everything that was happening inside that vacuum sealed container, and then they recorded for an hour and nothing happened, and then they said, okay, go for it. And then she's at home, so she's like, I don't know, a few miles away, or like quite a long distance away, and then she starts thinking about it, and the thing starts moving, And then they say stop, and she stops, and then they record for another hour after that to see if anything happens, and nothing happens. And then I thought that was absolutely amazing. That's like a proper scientific experiment, which is quite phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's, it's a great verification for sure.
And then also because I've got two, I put two next to each other because I wanted to see like if I was manipulating the one, if the other one would be moving. But then when I set them up, both of them were spinning like crazy. But then when they did settle down and they stopped like the next day, then I would just try it on the one, and then I could get the one to be moving, and the other one next to it would be dead still. So then I know that I was like, okay, fantastic. There's nothing in the room that's like, because if there was something in the room manipulated, both of them would be moving, and I was just concentrating on the one, so the one was moving. And I've seen people put the tin foil and the pin, both of them in one of those glass containers with the lid on the top. So they screw the lid on the top, and they've got like two pins and two tin foil things in it, and they just concentrate on the one, and they can make the one move inside there, not the other one. So the other one's dead still, and they're just moving the one, which is quite
Mhm.
amazing.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
have a video like that too. One bowl inside the other, and two of them are inside the first bowl, and one's above the other, and just moving one, and the other one doesn't move. And then I move up and then move the top one. There's this curious thing when you have two targets inside one container, or two containers side by side. I call it sticky energy, it doesn't really mean what it says. But where you're moving one for a significant amount of time, and then you shift your attention to the other target to try and move that one, that it takes a while, and instead the original one keeps moving and even moves faster sometimes, because somehow the connection is still there, and it takes time to transition it to the other targets. So that can happen too. And there's also another effect where you can place a tinfoil not on the needle, but just on the tabletop so it doesn't move. Put your intention into it for several minutes in a very strong way, and then place it on the needle, put the cover on, and walk away. And then it'll release the energy that you put into it for a while. And some might say, well, that's just heat energy that accumulated, and that's hard to prove too. But I think it's the idea that you could put energy into something like a battery, where it behaves like a battery, and you put on the needle, and then it starts releasing the intention that you'd put into it, because it was unable to move for you when it was on the table directly.
Mm.
So, I mean, over the years, I've done these things dozens and dozens of different ways that I noticed these strange effects.
Well, that's
Wow.
fantastic. Yeah.
And then also, because you've also been experimenting with psilocybin mushrooms now, or like hallucinogenic mushrooms with psychic abilities. Like, so how's that going?
Well, yeah, so I did that study 2 years ago, and it began as a microdosing study with 7 other participants. Half of them were a control group, and the other half would be microdosing for 6 months. And every week they had 3 or 4 different ESP tests that they had to complete, including remote viewing, telepathy, other forms of clairvoyance. And we scored all their tests every week, and to compare how the microdosers performed psychically compared to the control group. And all those pictures of the targets and the transcripts are in my book, Dewdrops of Infinity, so people can see the results there. But I'll give you the final result of that study was both groups performed very well psychically, but the microdosers did not perform better than the control group, which is disappointing. I thought certainly somehow microdosing, which can reduce someone's level of anxiety and stress over time, and maybe grant greater access to the subconscious mind, surely they would perform drastically better than the control group. No, they did about the same overall. But then I did 6 months of myself taking large doses of the psychedelic. So I'd be having full-blown hallucinations and things like that, and take some of these tests while I was under the influence, which is one of the hardest things I've ever done, because I don't know if you have experience or want to talk about that here, your
Yeah,
experience with
Yeah,
psychedelics.
let's
Yeah.
please go for it.
Okay. I mean, I don't know about you, but when I'm having a journey, all I want to do is lay down and go on the journey, just let go and let it happen. But I had to keep my business together enough where I could put on my blindfold, sit at a table. My wife would be sending a telepathy target, and I'm trying to perceive psychic information. looking for it in the hallucination, and found out over time that the psychic information is not in the hallucination, it's somewhere else.
Oh, wow.
Or looking at doing some blind sight tests, some remote viewing tests, all while I'm tripping out.
Yeah.
And, you know, my body's trembling, I'm having the chills, I'm having an emotional experience, and I'm trying
But
to
you're
do these
crying and your
ESP
wife's in
tests.
the other room, like, no, no, concentrate on the target. Stop
Right.
thinking about, stop
I'm
thinking about
seeing
your
a
childhood.
right. Someone from my past is showing up. There's a unicorn flying through my mind. There's a dragon over there. And I'm trying to do these ESP tests. So I did that for 6 months. And I think my performance was a little bit better than it normally would have been. But what was really significant was that it was good consistently, or I performed consistently well, where normally I would have one good day, a bad day with an ESP test. I would perform well, then perform poorly, then perform. Here, every time I took the test, it was consistently good. Now, that's a bit of information. It's worth me recording, which I recorded in the book, and people can see my targets there. But it's not enough to say scientifically, yes, large doses of psychedelics improve someone's consistency in performing ESP tests. No, we would have to do that experiment many, many, many times with large groups of people to say definitively, yes, psychedelics tend to improve your overall performance psychically. So I can't call my results a scientific. They're not conclusive, but they're enough to raise a question mark that this might be worthwhile to investigate further by other scientists. Because I don't know if I'll ever do that kind of work again. It was really, really difficult.
Wow.
Yeah, I recorded myself on video doing it, and it's almost embarrassing watching myself under the influence trying to do these tests. But the results are remarkable. They were consistently good.
Oh, wow.
So
Amazing.
maybe there's something there worth investigating. And so I used psilocybin mushrooms, LSD, LSA, like from Hawaiian baby wood rose seeds. And the last test I smoked DMT for, and that was perhaps the best telepathy test I've ever
Jeez,
done.
I've got to see that video. I've got to see that video. Where can we watch that video?
I'll send you the links. Yeah, I'll send you the links afterwards so you can
man.
watch. Yeah.
Is it on YouTube for everybody to watch, or was it?
It used to be, but the problem was I was so worried that people wouldn't understand what they were watching. So, you know, when you load a video on YouTube, you behind the scenes, you can see how long people watch the video for before they log off. Well, these are long videos and they're not particularly exciting, even though the topic is exciting. Oh, here's somebody doing psychic tests under the influence of a psychedelic. Who wouldn't want to watch that? But it's actually quite boring to watch. And I noticed it after 5 or 6 minutes of a 40-minute video, people were logging off because people come to YouTube for entertainment.
Yeah, sure.
Whereas these videos are more.
Just edit where you
do
the targets and stuff like that?
Yeah, I could edit it down even shorter, but then it misses the context. But then because people wouldn't understand what the whole process is. So I struggle with that. How much should I show the public and how much should I not? Should I just whittle it down, condense it so they can just watch it for entertainment? But then that takes the meaning out of it. They don't see like, oh, to do a psychic experiment takes time. It's not that exciting because this is the real stuff. This isn't like psychic abilities as they're portrayed in Hollywood or in the cinema.
Yeah, sure.
Though, you know, that's exciting. It happens instantly, great results, very powerful stuff. But in real life, psychic abilities are subtle and they take time. And they're not that much fun to watch someone doing it.
Sure. But it's like listening to regressions of like people's UFO experience. Like you think you're gonna see like you think they're gonna say something amazing and you like sit there for like half an hour watching this person and their regression, and it's like the most boring thing and they're talking so slowly and it's like, oh my God. So like no one in your videos just scrub to the good parts. Didn't they just go scrub through it and find where the good parts were?
Oh, generally the public doesn't even have patience enough to do that. They just move on, find a more exciting video from someone else. So I had to come to terms with that. So I took the videos down from being publicly viewable. So I just send links to people who ask for it, who I think would be able to appreciate the
Okay, cool.
boredom of it all. So they're really more appropriate for scientists or people who really want to observe what is the process like in case they want to recreate the experiment themselves.
Okay, well, good on you, man. That's great that you've like made some ground in that area for other people to take off.
But
so what
hold on,
was
William, before you carry on there, you were talking about UFOs earlier, but William, and I know
yeah.
Sean, you've got some sort of I know you discuss UFOs in your books as well. What is your beliefs on UFOs, sort of extraterrestrials? Where are you with that? What is your ideas?
Yeah, it's very strange. I so I've been to some group events, outside to look to call down
C
UFOs, basically to see them.
CE5?
CE5,
Sort
yeah.
of like CE5.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like using that label, but basically that's what it was, using group intention to invite UFOs to manifest themselves so that we can see them. So that's really where a lot of my UFO experience began, doing that here in Colorado in the mountains several years ago. And then something else happened that so years ago, what started off my whole experience with psychic development was training myself to have out-of-body experiences. So that's where this all started. But soon after I had the sightings of seeing the UFOs in the night sky, something happened while I was having and I'm not quite sure if it was an out-of-body experience or something else, but I had a type of, I'll just say it this way, a sexual encounter with a being that was strange. And if anyone's curious, I had an artist, I described the being and the situation to an artist. And in my book, I can't even remember the names of my books anymore, but in my memoir, Renegade, it's called Renegade Mystic. I
I
just
feel
finished
better now
my
because I couldn't remember the book's name, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've got you
yeah,
here, and I haven't got the book name.
yeah.
Like I can't remember. What an idiot! But now you can't remember. So I feel better.
I can't even
Okay,
remember because I just finished my 8th book, and after a while, you just
Lose
forget them
track.
after a while. But
Yeah.
yeah, so in Renegade Mystic, someone can look, and I had an artist draw the scene of me having sexual
Encounter.
experience with this being that I think most anyone would describe as a extraterrestrial or at least a non-human intelligence. So that was very strange and provocative for me. During that experience, I had this surge of energy moving through my body, up my spine, what some people would describe as a Kundalini experience. I don't know if that's what that was, and I don't know why that experience happened to me. And often I wonder how much of it was real, if any of it. That having had so much experience with out-of-body experiences, with lucid dreaming, with psychic development, I'm certain this was not just a dream. Like something happened in this other space. My consciousness was in another space, and this being met me there, and we had this encounter together, and it's never happened since, and I don't know the purpose of it. And I'm always frightened when I share this experience publicly the way I am right now with you, because it sounds nuts. It sounds crazy. And I'm not sharing it to try and get any attention, but I know I'm not the only one out there who's had this type of experience. So maybe me sharing it will give confidence and assurance to other people who've had similar experiences. And maybe they don't have anyone they can share this with, or maybe they're scared that if they share their experience, something bad will happen to them. So hopefully by sharing this right now, if someone's out there listening, they go, okay, thank you. I'm not the only one this has happened to, because it's very confusing.
It might,
And so
Sean, sorry, I'm going to just butt in there quickly. It might be something called an overlay experience. So obviously the theory around that is that you were taken somewhere. Something like you said could have been a Kundalini experience, could have been something to that experience, but to make it more maybe amenable to you, because had you gone through the normal experience, it might have been more painful, or something might have happened had you actually experienced it like it was supposed to be. But then they actually implant a memory, or they implant something into you that gives you a totally different perception of, oh wow, shit, that was actually pretty cool. Or, you know what I'm saying? So that might not really have happened, but something else did happen. that's just an implanted memory
Even
to
more
kind of,
scary.
yeah, to kind of make you forget perhaps maybe it was something that wasn't so cool. But yeah, that's actually what that might be, because I've heard a lot of that.
Mhm. I'm
What did
laughing, but I'm laughing in terror.
yeah, no, that sounds really scary. But what did your wife think of that afterwards?
Oh, she did not like hearing about it. You know, because basically I committed
Yeah.
adultery with a being not of this world. But you know,
You got kids
if
from
you
somewhere
say
else.
right, and there are
Living in a
many
double
stories
life.
like that from other people. Yeah, there are people who've had experiences that seem to indicate they have hybrid children
Yeah.
somewhere off planet
Yeah,
or
yeah,
somewhere else on
sure.
Earth.
So if you get a knock on the
Um,
door in a few years from now, hey, Dad.
Come on. But it's funny. I mean, like, no disrespect because it's quite a serious thing that you had there, but like, I just brought it up because my friend, his girlfriend, had a dream that he was cheating on her, and she woke up in the morning and was pissed off with him the whole day. And he's like, but it was your dream, and it was a dream. I didn't cheat on anybody. And she's like, yeah, but it was so real. And she was so like upset that, like with him the whole day, because she dreamt that he cheated on her. So yeah.
oh, that happened to me when I was a teenager. And actually, even in one time it happened in my early 30s. And in those cases, the woman had been cheating on me.
Oh wow.
Like I had a psychic
Telepathy.
impression in my dream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Picking it up
And that's how
telepathy.
a lot of psychic abilities, a lot of psychic
It's funny that you
events
say that.
occur.
Yeah.
Because
Mhm.
Dick Our guy that we just interviewed, but we didn't actually bring this up in his interview. He had the same that's because he asked whenever he's asked what is this two like psychic things he had when he was younger that like made him think he was psychic or whatever. The one was exactly that. He was dreaming or he thought that he like had images of his girlfriend cheating on him, and then he found out it was true. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's happened to me too. And the reason I believe that it happens that way when someone's cheating on you is for the same reason people often have spontaneous psychic events that save their lives, like
Mm,
stopping at an intersection, even though the light says it's okay to go forward,
yeah,
or
sure.
not boarding the airplane, not
Yeah.
going to the airport that day. There are many reports of people having dreams telling them, don't get on that flight, or
Mm,
take a different road to work, drive a different path, or something else that endangers their life or their health or something else like that. And I think being cheated on is a especially painful emotional event. And I think it's the emotional severity that made that psychic perception possible. Because we
yeah,
never
yeah,
dream about our partners or our lovers doing neutral activities. We never dream about that.
yeah.
Our radar, our psychic radar is looking out for pain. It's looking out to help us avoid pain or to identify when we're being betrayed or when things are happening that we wouldn't approve of, that would cause us a lot of pain. We're especially psychically sensitive to that kind of event. So I believe, and I use the word believe here because I don't know for sure, but I believe that's why I had those experiences when I was younger.
Yeah, sure, makes sense, man. I better go talk to my friend. Maybe he is like cheating on his girlfriend. I'm gonna be like, geez, see what
You
what's
you
really going
never
on there.
know. You never know, or he could be predicting the future, or maybe he's
Yeah.
cheating
Yeah.
and he's
Yeah.
feeling
Yeah, yeah.
guilty about it. Who knows? I'm sorry right now if his girlfriend's listening to this, so now she has questions to ask. But back to I want to, because earlier you asked about UFOs and psychedelics. Something that happened during that study I did 2 years ago was during one day when I took a large dose of psilocybin. That was early in the day. And around dinner time, I asked my wife to drive me to the grocery store because I was in no state to drive. So she drove me to the grocery store. And when we were driving back home, she was driving, I'm just looking up at the sky, and I saw one, a UFO, just briefly. And it felt like it's noticed, and this is just a feeling, it felt like the UFO noticed that I saw it, and then it disappeared, like it was shy. And then a month or two later, I had my DMT experience. And the following day, I was driving on the road and I stopped at an intersection and I look up in the sky and I saw another one just hiding along the edge of a cloud. And again, it
Oh,
felt like it knew that I saw it, and then it disappeared.
And what kind
And
of shape
it
was
just spheres. And the DMT one was a little bit pinkish, and the psilocybin one was white. And I can't say with 100% certainty that they were UFOs because I'm in a high traffic area for aircraft. There are a couple of airports in the area. So I always leave it open. You know, I'm never 100% certain. But that I had these experiences immediately following the use of a psychedelic is interesting to me
it? Yeah, sure.
because I've been training all those months to open my mind psychically through the use of psychedelics. And to randomly, spontaneously see a UFO the day of or the day after taking a psychedelic, that's interesting. Because perhaps have you heard of instances where there's a group of people outside and only half of the group is able to see the UFO, and the other half, they're looking at the sky and they don't see anything? There's
Yeah,
an
yeah.
openness of mind that's required. And I wonder if the psychedelic had helped me open my mind to a degree that I could perceive this without even trying. I saw it up there in the sky. Is it
Yeah.
possible? Of course, how do you do a study on this to verify it? This would be a very expensive long-term study, difficult to find people willing to
But
participate, and then there are the ethics involved.
but it's funny, but you mentioned that because it's funny you mentioned that because like a lot of people that have had like extraterrestrial encounters of that is after they've like started this meditation practice. Like Whitley Strieber, I mean, he was doing the sensing exercise. He calls the sensing exercise like it's basically like a Vipassana or a body scan or whatever. And he is doing that, and I kind of like think that's the cause of how all of this like phenomenon just started happening around him because he like tapped into something. And then also that Elizabeth, I forgot her name is Elizabeth. That's the girl. She's quite famous now on Instagram. And it's the same thing. She went to a Vipassana retreat for 10 days, and then she's like having doing Vipassana, and then she gets contacted by these beings like in the middle, like halfway through this Vipassana thing, and she suddenly like has contact. So I think it does kind of like when you open your mind up, you start seeing things like that. But after your experience, your out of body experience, with like having a sexual experience with the alien, what did you have out of body experiences after that, or you like too scared to, or what happened after that with your out of body
Oh,
experience?
that's a beautiful question. Or were you scared to? I have had experiences since then spontaneously because I learned to recognize the feeling when it happens spontaneously. But I have to admit, I'm a little more nervous now than I used to be when I was trying to make them happen on purpose. Because now I know there's a lot more out there than I was expecting.
But
And
in
I
your
can't
book,
just. Mhm.
in
Go
your
ahead.
book, you said like in your book, said that you can't remember which one it was. Maybe it was Mindsight, but you said that you had out of body. You were feeling exhausted, like you were exhausted this whole like for weeks or something. You didn't know what it was, and then you had a spontaneous out of body experience, and you came out and you saw that there was a guy like just hovering above you while you were sleeping, and he was like sucking your energy out. I mean, if I saw that out of my body experience, I don't know if I'd ever carry on doing it. But there's a lot of that, like with Robert Monroe's experiences. I mean, you know, he comes out of his body, and then all of a sudden there's all these blobs around him, and they're attacking him, and he's fighting them, and you know, it's like quite, and yeah, it's quite scary sometimes what the people say. I mean, as much as I've been trying to have out of body experiences, like,
You're putting the people off, Will.
yeah, but the only great the most closest I've come to out of body experience, like I've had like a few, but I think it's more of it's like a lucid dream. But the one I did come out, like there was all this popping in my ears, and I felt like I was floating, but I couldn't see anything. And I was doing all those techniques like in Robert Monroe's book and William Buhlman's book, and then when you say like um clarity now, or like lights on, or like move to the door or whatever. But I couldn't move and I couldn't do anything. But there was such a strong presence of somebody in that room with me, like at extreme, like more than like if someone's just standing here and you know, you feel like there's a presence in a room when you would like if you're working and then you feel someone come up to you next to you like a colleague and you're like, oh, okay, what do you want? But like they were, it was like that times like 1,000. It was like there was someone there that it was just like an overwhelming thing. And then I came back into my body, and then there was the pins and needles all over my body. That was like probably the most profound thing I experienced. and the others were just like lucid dreams because like I could see things in there, but it was dreaming. And when I woke up, the things in the room were exactly like that, but it wasn't as profound as in the books, because in the literature it's always like it's so profound, like it's like realer than real. And like, you know, they turn around, they see their body, and it's like, you know, they come when they wake up, their lives change because it's such a profound experience. It's never been like that for me, you know.
Well, when you read the books, you're only reading the very best stories. You know, there wouldn't be great books if they wrote about the mediocre experiences also. So, and I'm saying this as an author, you know, I've had plenty of experiences that were not exciting, not that interesting. So why write about it? So don't feel put off. Like your experience is completely valid, even if it didn't match what you read in the books. Because I'm sure those authors have had experiences just like yours. They just didn't write about them, you know.
Yeah.
But in terms of the fear that we're talking about, it's very much like when I started training to have an out-of-body experience, it's like going to the beach for the very first time. I don't know what city you're in. Are you near the beach?
Yeah, I'm near the beach.
Yeah, we both are actually, yeah.
Okay. So for me, it was like walking on the sand, looking out at the bluish gray water on a calm day, seeing how beautiful the water looked, and deciding to go in for a dip, to just dive in and have a nice swim. But after having a few of those, it's like now I look out at the water and I see all the great whites. I know there are great white sharks swimming in there, and the jellyfish,
Yeah.
and the sea urchins, and all the other fish that are not particularly interested in me sharing their space. So I know that's in the back of my mind every time now that I'm trying to do these things. It is a big universe.
But also,
Then,
isn't there
Mhm.
like techniques? I mean, there's in the books that they say there's techniques, and like I know because me and Lee also tried the Robert Monroe's what is this? What is that thing called? The where you the binaural
Oh,
beats that
the
have
binaural
what?
beats.
No, but there's like a course, the gateway experience. That's it. And
Mm.
it's this whole thing technique of building this like light bubble around you, and like making a safe space or whatever, or like doing a magic circle or whatever, you know. But have you ever tried any of those techniques and like had success, like that it would keep the critters out?
I, no, I mean, it's really because it is the world, we're entering the world of mind. And sometimes things we imagine can become real and some of them don't. I think the bubble thing is really about it's like a security blanket. It's an emotional
Yeah,
security blanket to help you feel safe, which does transform your experience.
yeah,
Can it
sure.
really,
Because then you feel safe. Yeah.
yeah, so I think it's useful that way. Can it really protect you if there's another sentient being in that space who wants to interact with you? I don't know. If I go
Well, now you've
diving with the
destroyed
sharks,
everyone's safety blankets.
right? When you go swimming off the coast, you better be in a shark cage, and it can't just be a thought bubble. It needs to be made of steel bars, you know? So, I'm just having fun. And you know, the safety of the out of body experiences, while we're alive in these bodies, we are assigned these bodies. And when the fear becomes overwhelming, we instantly, in my experience, instantly return to the body and wake up. No one's going to take you away permanently. No one's going to hurt you. Your essence is beyond time and space. You cannot be, this is my belief again, you cannot be harmed in the out of body space, but you can become frightened. And that's just an emotion. Just like even adults can have nightmares. We're scared during the dream, but then we wake up, we still feel scared because we have all the stress hormones flying through our body. So we feel fear still, but after a few minutes, we calm down and the fear is gone and we are safe and sound. It's the same thing with the out of body experience. Now, what happens to people who are having out of body type of experiences when non-human intelligences are involved, where people are being taken away or they experience themselves being taken away and hurt or being chipped, you know, some object being put inside of them for tracking purposes or other types of experiences. So things can happen. And these all intersect the out of body experience, UFO interactions, psychic abilities, and even what's possible with psychedelics. At the core of these four fields is the field of consciousness. It's the same playing ground
Hmm.
where all this is occurring. But I think there are different levels, and people have different affinities. They spend more time in one than the other. And of course, we all spend 99% of our consciousness in this physical body while we're awake. And half of our time asleep, we're blacked out anyway.
100%.
So,
But it's yeah, it's interesting because like when I speak to sangomas and they tell me like sangomas are like shamans here in South Africa, they call them sangomas, like traditional healers, shamans or whatever. But when they go into their training, they go into these altered states of consciousness, into the spiritual or etheric or whatever you want to call it. It sounds like out of body experiences, and they tell me these experiences, and they say they meet the most hideous, scary things they've ever seen. But they say it's part of the training because it's like a test. Because when you're in this, when you're dealing with the spirit world, you're going to come up with lots of huge challenges and like scary things, and you're going to have to know how to deal with them. So sometimes when I think of these out of body experiences, you see something like so crazy or something, maybe that's just like a test to see like if you're strong enough to be able to take it to the next level or something.
absolutely. Yeah. And it's similar to the psychedelic experience. So you can encounter entities there too, just like you can in the out-of-body experience. And you get to test your emotional fortitude. Can I face these beings, just be present with them, or do I turn away? Do I try and escape? Do I try and change the visions that are occurring in my mind's eye? How do I respond? And it's a very powerful way to learn about oneself and to develop confidence in oneself, existentially speaking. So it is a training ground, both actually all of these, the psychic training, the out-of-body experience, and the use of psychedelics are all tools for training and development and developing maturity as a conscious being, not just as a human being, but as consciousness itself. See, I believe at the core, even though we have these human bodies, consciousness is not human. Consciousness is not human. It is something more, and it just appears human while we're in our body and awake. We appear like human beings. Of course, we have our physicality, but the consciousness behind it, it is not a human thing. And I don't know how to describe it in more detail, but it's just my understanding from the way psychic abilities function, from what's occurring with non-human entities and what occurs during the psychedelic experience. Consciousness is not human. We don't own it. It doesn't belong to us. We're part of it, but it is not us. It's something more, and perhaps beyond description, or beyond the human brain's ability to describe it. So we're in it, but it's not limited to being us humans or even animals. It's something much more vast. I think of it as being as fundamental as gravity and time. And gravity and time are relative across the universe. They're not fixed. And I think consciousness is stretched out across the universe in the same way, and it is not fixed. It's relative.
But
It is
that's
beyond
also
description.
that's a great way to leave it. So I think we should end it there. But that's the whole thing about like when people think that your consciousness is
Singular.
made from the brain, but or is actually just a filter that you're actually receiving this consciousness, and you actually your brain's just filtering it so you can like it's not so expanded, or it's so that's that whole what do you call it, like belief of you actually are generating your own consciousness, or the consciousness is outside of you and your brain's just a filter and you actually just receiving your consciousness, and obviously it filters out all the other bigger things so you can actually understand, so it's not too overwhelming. And
Well, that's
that's
what
all
we spoke to Paul Wallace. It was last week, William?
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you know Paul, Sean. He does these. He's an author. He's from Australia. He does these books called the Eden series, where he talks about paleo contact, which is kind of in our deep past extraterrestrial contact that we've had. But he's actually, one of his main discussions is exactly what you said there. He calls it the source. So it's not God. But I suppose you could call it God, but it's beyond that. It's something called the source, where everything exists, and we kind of tap into that. As you said, we're part of that whole thing. So it's kind of the same as what Paul was saying. Very
Like
similar.
walking aerials, walking satellite dishes or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think on some level it's important to honor that we are also our physical bodies and brains, that we just don't discard that like, oh, I'm consciousness, but I'm not really my body. But the truth is, the experience we have of our sense of self is composed of our physical experience. So much of our personality is based off of what's going on in the brain. The traumas we experience growing up, the beautiful experiences coming up, our sense of sight and smell and touch and taste that is only achievable through the physical organs in the brain. That's a tremendous gift. It is a gift to be an ordinary human being. For me, it is the ultimate version of existence, because ultimate consciousness cannot do this without the physical form.
Correct.
It is our ability to be born in these bodies that grow old and then eventually die, our appreciation for time and our senses and connection with other living physical creatures. That's what gives us the ability to produce meaning. Because without meaning, none of this matters. And it is, the human form is a particularly special capacity to produce meaning. And that's thank you to the brain. And of course, our interactions with things beyond the body. But the body is such a gift in my viewpoint. That's one reason why I'm not particularly concerned with developing my psychic abilities. I still love teaching, but I don't care if I'm psychic or not. I just want to be in my body and appreciate my very human life until the day I die, because I think this is a rare opportunity and it's for a limited time only, you know? So they're both valuable. The ultimate consciousness is valuable, but so is our very limited these bodies that cause us so many problems. It's actually such a blessing, because without it, we wouldn't have this sense of meaning that we get to experience every day, and with the people who we love and care about, and all the struggles we go through.
Wow, you know what, Sean, it just reminds me of that book, The Alchemist, by Pablo, whatever his name is, where like the alchemist, I don't know if you've ever read it, but he's looking for that treasure, and he's sitting under that tree, and that's where his journey begins, because he wants to find this treasure, and he goes on this huge long journey across the world, and he goes through all these experiences only to come back to where he started, under that tree, and he finds out that the treasure was right there under the tree. And it sounds like that's your experience. Like, you were human, you were so like interested in all these psychic abilities, and you were exploring, and you went on this whole mission to explore and find out everything because you were searching for this treasure. And then you realized it was actually right back there where you started, in your body, and you appreciate it so much better now. So what a wonderful way to end it. That's amazing, Sean. Thank you so much, man.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. Much appreciated. I much appreciate your time.
Experience, everything.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Cool.
Yeah. Cool, man. So yeah, well, we hope to have you back on some other time, and just thanks again for.
Yeah, I'm glad it worked out. This was really fun. It was really great talking to you both. And let me know when you have this loaded. I'll put it on my website too, and let people know that they can listen to it and send it out to my mailing list.
Okay, fantastic. That's awesome. Yeah, thanks, Sean. I appreciate that.
Yeah, 100%.
Sure.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
Enjoy the rest of your day, man.
All right, you too. Have a good evening.
Cheers, Sean.
Bye.
Cheers,
Cheers.
Sean. Bye.
That was cool, man. Nice.
You've done very well. That was great.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. And geez, thanks, guys. It was another interesting one again tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed as much as we did. And we'll chat again next week. Well, once again, thank you for your time. We'll speak to you next week, William.
Cool.
Thanks, buddy. Cheers.
Cheers, bro.